A violent brawl in Cincinnati, 2 brutal murders in the Ozarks, and legal immigration status for hundreds of MS-13 gang members. I'm Hena Doba, and for Elizabeth Vargas, America's News starts right now. Tonight, it's one of the most insane videos to emerge this year. A brawl in downtown Cincinnati so preposterous and shocking that people can't stop sharing it online. Vice President J.D. Vance says he's disgusted. His brother is running for mayor of that city, and he joins me live. Then another frantic manhunt in the Ozarks, this time for a suspect who brutally murdered 2 parents in front of their daughters during a hike. Was it targeted or a random cold-blooded attack? And later, don't panic, but a recently discovered interstellar object the size of Manhattan could be an alien craft with, quote, hostile intentions. Or is it just a comet? Famed Harvard astrophysicist Avi Loeb is here to weigh in. We start tonight with a truly disturbing story out of Arkansas. A manhunt is underway after a brutal double homicide in the Ozark Mountains. Clinton and Kristen Brink were murdered while out on a hike in Devil's Den State Park with their 2 young daughters. That was Saturday afternoon. Those girls, aged 7 and 9, miraculously, they were unharmed. The details are still a little patchy, but it seems they made their way to a visitor center, told workers that at least one of their parents was stabbed. State troopers went out to check on the couple, and this is the moment one of them called in to report finding the victims.
Try to relay to the office. So we found the victims down here. They're on the lower Devil's Den Trail. Just a couple minutes. I think I see you right there. I've got two bodies down here.
A statement from the family says the couple died protecting their daughters. The suspect was seen wearing fingerless gloves and carrying a black backpack and drove out of the park in a 4-door sedan with the license plate obscured by electrical tape. The Brink family moved to Arkansas just a few weeks ago. Joining me now for more on this is Chris Swecker. He is former assistant FBI assistant director. Chris, thanks for coming on. I'm so sorry it's under these circumstances. This is day 3 of the manhunt. He left the park. The license plates were covered. How do you even go about finding that vehicle now?
Yeah, you can assume that he's either ditched the license plate and or the car. And, there was no real-time chase. They were probably several hours behind him, because I think it took the children a good while to make their way back to the visitor center. So he has got a very, very long head start. So this is challenging, and I think that's why you see the Arkansas State Police being so proactive in going out to the public with their description of the car. All the little details are out there now. Those are the only details we're getting. We don't have much details about the actual crime scene, but clearly they are being very active out there and trying to get the help of the American public.
Chris, given the remote location and how the suspect escaped, does this seem random or targeted to you?
It seems, this is not the first time that something like this has happened in a state or a federal park, national park. But this one does seem random, and all the others that we've seen in other parks were indeed random. But unfortunately, the remote nature of these types of parks make it perfect for predators like this person here, this murderer here, who can patrol, and sort of troll at will, and choose his victims, and go into action. It's a clinical way of describing it. But unfortunately, the national parks are places where killers like this can hunt.
With your experience in the FBI, what stands out to you about this crime from a behavioral or investigative perspective?
What stands out is that there were 2 children there, that, he chose victims with 2 children. And that seems so incredibly impulsive. If he was going through the park looking for victims, you would think he would choose a lone person or a couple without children who could either you have to deal with as witnesses, or understand that they're going to get back somewhere and report the crimes. But I think he was more interested in getting out there quickly and not wasting any time. You know, he put tape over his license plate, so he clearly had presence of mind. Maybe he did that ahead of time. And the description of the car, you know, we don't have the tag itself. All we have is a description of the car. So there's some calculating maneuvers here and some evidence of pre-planning.
This is just so tragic. Local police are, like you mentioned, asking the public for help in finding any images, video, information about the suspect with limited surveillance because this being a state park. How do you narrow a suspect profile?
Yeah, I mean, the calls for video is pretty random because it's so remote out there. You know, you deal with this by tracing the routes that they think he left. There's only a certain couple of entrances and exits, and then track to where the first camera location is, because there are cameras everywhere at gas stations, at businesses along the way. There are ring videos, there's cars, there's residences. You really got to get out there and do the gumshoe work and do the neighborhood investigations, trying to get some video to see if you can get a better description of the car and the killer.
Chris, how critical is time when it comes to tracking down a murderer like this?
Yeah, I mean, I always say the first 24 hours are critical. In this case, I mean, thankfully he didn't take the children with him.
Yeah.
You know, that is one thing we don't have to deal with. You know, as in law enforcement, they can sort of be very deliberate in how they conduct this search. They don't have to panic, and they don't have to deal with a compressed time frame. So this person is going to get cited somewhere. They always do, and I think we're going to find that this is not the first time this has happened. This type of killing, it seems like they're not isolated instances.
We've talked about this area before. The devil in the Ozarks manhunt was just about 100 miles away. Of course, for our viewers, just to remind them, that's the murderer who escaped from prison. He was on the run for weeks now. The area we're talking about, Chris, you mentioned this, it's remote. It has a lot of thick vegetation. I'm assuming there's just a lot of places to hide as well.
Yeah, there is inside the park. I think there's an assumption here that he got out of the park in his car. And now you've got Fayetteville, Arkansas, a pretty good sized city about 30 miles away. So, inside of 30 minutes, he can just completely melt into the city. So again, there just isn't a whole lot to work with here. Yeah. And that's why I wanted to talk about the video, because there are, it's hard not to get on video these days.
Right.
The business along the way, somewhere along those two highways, that vehicle had to pass under a video in the vision or in the field of one or more videos. I've done this type of investigation. You have to knock on doors and look around. Churches, businesses, they all have cameras now.
Look, Chris, I really appreciate your experience and your insight here. Again, this is just a heartbreaking story. Chris Swecker, we appreciate your time tonight. Awful. Thank you. And a quick programming note for you. Tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern, Ashley Banfield will be talking to a couple who believe they sighted the Devil's Den suspect on Saturday on that very hiking trail. You don't want to miss that. We're going to turn to Cincinnati now, where police are urgently searching for suspects involved in a bloody street brawl as they try to figure out why the brawl started in the first place. Cheering bystanders caught it all on camera. Let's take a look at this video, and I just want to warn you, this video is violent. So this happened late Friday night in downtown Cincinnati. It's unclear how the fight started, but Cincinnati police, they say alcohol played a significant part. They said that is clear when it comes to this brawl. In another moment, caught in a different video, this is very hard to watch. A man is seen punching a woman in the face, and then he appears to knock her out cold. You see her there on the ground, blood dripping out of her mouth. The police chief says they've identified victims and suspects. 5 people are facing charges at this time, and that number is expected to rise.
Let me be clear. Anyone who put their hands on another individual during this incident in an attempt to cause harm will face consequences. I don't care which side of the incident or the fight they were on.
In a statement today, Cincinnati's Democratic mayor wrote in part that he is outraged by this vicious fight and confident that more arrests are coming. He also said the melee wasn't connected to large events in the city over the weekend. That included the Cincinnati Music Fest, the local Reds games, and the Big Three tournament. Let's go right to NewsNation investigative correspondent Rich McHugh, who is live for us in downtown Cincinnati. That video, Rich, so hard to watch. What more are you learning?
Yeah, it was just awful. Well, I first want to show our viewers, we are right at the scene where this happened, just over my shoulder. The police chief, as you just heard, she says this is still an open and active investigation. They're considering any and all charges for those suspects involved in this. She did make an interesting point during her press conference earlier to say, essentially, they only got one call and sort of laid blame on the bystanders. Take a look.
One person did the right thing and called 911. I think what they should be angry about is nobody called the police. Nobody got us there as quickly as we could get there.
Now, there are some who are quick to slam the chief's response and the city's response. Vivek Ramaswamy, who's running for governor here in Ohio, had this to say just a few minutes ago. It's unconscionable that there were no police present in that area of Cincinnati on Friday night, or even an ambulance to take her to the hospital, her being the victim, the one we saw just on camera there a little bit ago. Harmeet Dillon, she's the Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights at the U.S. Department of Justice. She wrote, "Our federal hate crime laws apply to all Americans. We at Civil Rights will monitor closely how local authorities handle this attack." Now, I also spoke with Ken Colbert. He's the president of Fraternal Order of Police here. I asked him if they have any idea what led up to this. Here's what he had to say.
No, I think that's part of this investigation, is determining. You have to have both sides of the story. They have what the victims have said, but that's only one side of the story. And unfortunately, in these cases, you usually have two sides of the story, and then somewhere in the middle is the truth. And that's what these investigators are working to uncover.
Now, details are starting to creep out about the victims. We're learning that the victims are okay. The woman that we saw there who had been punched, her name is Holly. I believe she's a single mother. She was here celebrating a friend's birthday that night. We're also expecting more charges likely tomorrow. Hena?
I'm so glad the victims are doing okay tonight. Rich McHugh, thank you, live in downtown Cincinnati. And this violent brawl isn't just getting reaction on social media or from locals in Cincinnati. We're also hearing about it from the White House. Here's Vice President J.D. Vance today, an Ohio native, during a visit to his home state.
What I saw is a mob of lawless thugs beating up on an innocent person, and it's disgusting. And I hope every single one of those people who engage in violence is prosecuted to the full extent of the law. But the one part that I saw that was really gruesome is you had a grown man who sucker punched a middle-aged woman, and the only way to destroy that street violence is to take the thugs who engage in that violence and throw their asses in prison.
Joining us now, J.D. Vance's younger brother, Corey Bowman. He's running as a Republican candidate for mayor of Cincinnati. Thanks so much for coming on the show, Corey.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
First, your reaction as soon as you saw this video to the violence on the streets of the city that you want to lead.
Yeah, well, there's two ways you can look at that. The entire nation saw these images, and obviously there is shock, there's disbelief, there's horror in the reactions of it. But then I'm looking at it from somebody that lives 6 blocks away from the incident. And the reality of it is that for the people that live in the downtown area, these images aren't just shocking, but they're also a reminder of what we've had to go through with rising crime throughout the entire summer.
Cincinnati's police chief, and Rich McHugh touched on this as well, put the blame on bystanders, saying only one person called 911. You went on social media today. You said that is a bold-faced lie. Why?
It's because I was actually in the area today doing several interviews, and there's a lady that was in the area. She lives right in the apartment complex, right where these videos happen. She went out of her way, came and gave me a big hug because we're running for the mayor of Cincinnati. And she said, thank you so much for running. And she told me a story that she was one of the ones that actually called 911 that night. She sent me a screenshot of it, and it was at 3:03 a.m. The police chief said that they only received one call at 3:06 a.m.
Yeah.
And I doubt that I'm in contact with the only person that called 911 that night. And she also said that the dispatcher was also very rude and dismissive of it.
You're calling for the removal of Cincinnati's city manager after this incident. Why do you want this person taken out of the job?
Well, if you understand this, you have to understand how the city government works in Cincinnati. And ultimately, we have a CEO position, which is the city manager. Now, the city manager was appointed by our current incumbent, Mayor Aftab, and he nominated Cheryl Long to be our city manager. Well, through that, this isn't just one incident. There's been a proven track record to where this administration, through the city manager's office, has proven time and time again that they're not ready for this task. Let alone the crime, there's been certain initiatives that they pushed that haven't done anything to help the community. During this winter, we had a terrible snowplow removal situation where businesses were closed for days on end. And then we have potholes and infrastructure maintenance that is in the gutter in our city. And so I put it on the desk of the city manager, who also appointed the police chief.
We all heard that clip from your brother calling to make streets safer. What would you do as Cincinnati's mayor in that regard, Corey?
Well, there's a short-term and there's a long-term aspect to this. Short-term is you got to be able to find that in the city manager's office, there is major things going on that are not benefiting the city. You got to hold people accountable for what's going on. For our situation in here, we have a call center. I mentioned the dispatch unit. The emergency communication center in Cincinnati is in the hands of city. It's not in the hands of the police department. So what's happening in our city is that every year we roll out new initiatives, new community programs. We have community responders and alternative response units. But what these are doing is it's furthering the divide of the police department and our community. And the police officers are, I think, roughly around 200 members short-staffed right now. They don't feel like that the city has their back. And then, like the FOP president said today, we have half of our prosecutors that will just catch and release these criminals and put them right back on the street.
I do want to ask you, as we're watching this video and we're slowly getting more details, do you think this was race-related, Corey, or does it speak to a larger problem in Cincinnati, like you mentioned, a lack of policing?
Well, I've been telling people that we are not here to take sides of the fight or the violence. We're here to combat the violence. No matter what, no matter how this fight was started and no matter the motives, we should not be seeing violence like what we're seeing on these streets in a major city in America. And so we have to fight it from the root issues. Now, the motivations behind it, I'll tell you this, everybody wants to divide. Everybody wants to say that it's one side or the other. We have to look at the root issue of this, and that's mismanagement. We have this saying that's trickle-down incompetence. This incompetence is coming from the top down, and we have to fix it.
Corey Bowman, I appreciate you making time for us tonight. Thank you again.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Coming up on the other side, we're following breaking news out of New York City. This just coming in. Police are responding to reports of an active shooting situation at a skyscraper building in Midtown Manhattan. One police officer and one civilian have reportedly been shot. We're working to get more details. We'll have more after a quick break. We're going back to that breaking news out of New York City. Police are responding to reports of an active shooter at a building in Midtown Manhattan that houses the NFL. You see officers running into that building. The gunman reportedly shot one police officer and two civilians. That's according to our sister station, WPIX. New York City Mayor Adams confirming the shooting on X. He has warned people not to go outside near Park Avenue and East 51st Street. This is a live look at the scene. Joining me now by phone, Joe Carnali, retired NYPD Lieutenant Commander. Commander, always good to see you. So we see the NYPD running in. I understand the area is locked down. They have issued a shelter in place. Where does the investigation go from here?
Well, you can see that emergency services are already entering the building. I'm sure that the police officer and the other two victims were removed already, hopefully. And this is going to be secured until they deem it anything else other than an active shooter. We don't know what the call was, what the nature of the call, what they were called to the building for. So until we know that, whether this person is still inside the building, so they have to treat it that way. And the fact that they already started evacuating the building means that more personnel on the scene already, and they're getting probably the lower floors out of there. But you really want to lock that building down because you don't know if the perpetrator can get out of that building with the crowd. So you really want to do that shelter in place until they, systematically go through each floor for that.
There are many huge businesses in this building. We mentioned the NFL, Blackstone, JP Morgan. How difficult is it to evaluate a building like this? I'm assuming they're going floor by floor, door to door. How hard is that?
Well, I can tell you right now, the emergency service will have the plans for that building right away. They have the capability of getting the plans for the building. And until they know the nature of the shooting and everything, you have to lock that building down. Get everybody out that's already been victimized over there. Anybody else that can lock themselves down should be doing that. It's difficult because it's a 44-story building, all right? And you have to, naturally go from the roof down and secure from the roof down. So they'll have officers going up there, securing the roof. They'll start, like I said, systematically going through the building. But until they know that it's not an active shooter, this is going to be an ongoing, the scene you see right now is going to be ongoing for quite some time until they deem the building safe.
And when you hear that a police officer was shot, how does that possibly change the investigation?
Well, it changes it tremendously because you're talking about a first responder that's going to a job or called to a job. We don't know whether he was on patrol downstairs by himself and he was called up there or had a post over there. But if he had a partner, I'm sure the partner will be given the information needed. But it changes the whole dynamics of it because, you have a person that has no regard for anybody, shot a cop and two other people. So this is a very serious shooter.
Commander, if you can take me step by step, like you mentioned, first responders are in the building. They're evacuating the building or there's a shelter in place. What happens next in this investigation?
Well, they're going to go to that floor and they're going to lock that floor down and isolate that floor. That'll be, their zone right there, in a perimeter zone. And then they have to go floor to floor. They're going to bring in a lot of personnel for this. Until they, like I said, until you know that this is not an active shooter, and until they may identify somebody that fled the scene and identify the shooter, they have to treat it as such. So each floor will have to be, systematically gone through, knock on every door, check on every door, see who's inside each room. Maybe this person is locked themselves inside the room, and they have to get, they get hostage negotiators up there. But the whole thing is the safety of everybody in that building and the responding officers.
Does the FBI also assist with an investigation like this?
If need be, they'll jump right in on it. But once again, you have to see what you're dealing with first. It could be a lone situation. It could be somebody involved. It could be a group. It could be domestic. You don't know what the call is right now. So until we identify what the call actually was, whether they were called to the scene or the officer was, in that building for whatever reason. I mean, you said the NFL is housed in that building. It could be a post that they had something going on. But like I said, until you identify what is going on, what the purpose of what the reason for that person being in that building is and who that person is, you still have to treat this as the active shooter. And that will mean locking down that floor, first of all, and then locking down the entire building and going through it room and office or room, whatever they have to do, they'll go through it one by one. They'll get all the manpower they need to do it.
And you're absolutely right. I mean, we have more questions than answers. This just happened a little while ago. Commander, if you can talk to me about logistics. This is a very busy area in Midtown Manhattan. It's the middle of the summer. There are a lot of tourists here. How difficult is it to get this building and this area secure?
Well, like I said, they'll bring the personnel in that they need. You can see the police cars are stationed outside. They'll lock down that outer perimeter. Nobody's going to go into that building. All right. Nobody will be allowed to enter that building other than emergency personnel. And it's going to be not only there, they'll do the subway stations as well. And they'll notify the hospitals to see if this person was shot by the police. So the hospitals are going to be on standby for more reasons than one. They don't know if there's any other victims there. So they have to evaluate that as well. But like I said, we don't know what the officer responded to, why that officer was there. So we don't know the circumstances of this, but it's definitely going to take some time to clear a building of that size. As you see now, you can see the personnel outside lined up out there ready to go and do what they have to do. But they're being told by emergency service, who will be up on that floor first, and they'll be locking down that floor. And they'll be directed by the supervisor in emergency service who'll get in touch with everybody down below. They'll set up a command post, and they'll, like I said, they'll go through each floor. But first, that floor has to be locked down, and they have to make sure that there's no other victims anywhere in that building. They'll check the hallways, they'll check the roof, they'll check all over.
And like you mentioned, those images were a live look. We see that heavy police presence. This just coming into the newsroom. Commander Joe, thank you so much. We really, really appreciate you coming. Joe Cardinale, thank you again. And like I mentioned to our viewers, this is a breaking story developing not too far from where I'm sitting. We'll have much more for you after the break as more details come in. Don't go anywhere. We are following breaking news out of New York City. This is not too far from where I'm sitting right now. Police are responding to reports of an active shooter at a building in Midtown Manhattan that houses Blackstone and the NFL's headquarters. I want to tell you what you're looking at right now. The NYPD has locked down this building. These are employees that work in this massive skyscraper in Midtown Manhattan. You see them all walking out with their hands up. Now, the gunman reportedly shot one police officer and two civilians. That is according to our sister station, WPIX. New York City Mayor Adams is warning people not to go outside near Park Avenue and East 51st Street. The FBI's deputy director says agents are on their way to provide support. Joining me on the phone, Joe Cardinale, retired NYPD lieutenant commander, and former FBI special agent and NewsNation contributor Jennifer Coffindaffer. Also joining me on the phone is Jason Pack, retired FBI supervisory special agent. Thanks to all of you for coming on. Joe, I will start with you with your experience with the NYPD. Tell me what's happening in the investigation right now. What happens next?
As we stated before, they're going to start evacuating that building. And they're going to do it, floor by floor, getting everybody down and isolating that other, that floor where the occurrence was. So as you see, everybody's coming out with their hands up. You still don't know if the shooter's amongst this crowd, so they have to treat it as such. That's why you have so many personnel on the floor, and they're going to check everybody out there. You see state troopers are there. Everybody is going to get as much personnel as they can. And that building, like I said, is going to be locked down. Once they get everybody out, nobody will be allowed in other than they have the perimeters, the outer and the inner perimeter, and they're going to lock it down, and they're going to try to see if that person is still in the building. And if not, while all this is going on, they're not waiting to see if anything else. They'll be getting the footage from all the cameras within the building and the surrounding buildings as well.
Jason, as we're watching this all unfold, I mentioned that the FBI is on their way to assist in any way they can. What role does the FBI play now?
Well, the FBI will play a support role. The NYPD is one of the largest and most capable police departments in the entire world. But as your colleague said, they're going to need manpower and staffing to be able to help identify some of those things. They work together on a daily basis. There's a lot of NYPD officers on task forces in New York City. So they're not unfamiliar with each other. They work together quite a bit. But I think the FBI will do whatever NYPD asks them to do in this situation because of that close working relationship. They know the capabilities and are able to plug in any gaps that they may have.
Jennifer, like Jason and Joe mentioned, we don't have too many details right now. We don't know if the shooter is still in the building. How do they proceed? What are they looking at right now as far as first responders and law enforcement? Jennifer?
Support for will be tactical units and hostage negotiation teams. These will be getting into place right now, particularly sniper units, obviously in conjunction with NYPD, who will have the lead and they will be supporting. But that's the kind of implementation that they're going to be providing. Also interviewing witnesses. This is a huge task, and as much manpower is going to be needed as is available.
Let me stick with you for a second, Jennifer. We know the NYPD has locked down this building. They have issued a shelter in place. Talk to me about the difficulties of locking down a skyscraper in Midtown Manhattan in the middle of summer with so many people roaming this area anyway, but we also know, it's a busy tourist season.
This is a monumental task. Just the fact that so many in there will have no idea what's going on. And so, if they don't have communication with the outside and with news agencies, the number of people in that building, it's so many people. So just the communication aspect of this is going to be very difficult.
Jason, like you mentioned, the NYPD is going to lead this investigation. The FBI is going to assist. Okay, this is a new image. I just want to make sure with my team, what am I looking at right now? Okay, that is the alleged suspect we saw going into that building. That is new video coming in. And if you're joining us now, I just want to rehash what you're watching. There is an active shooter situation in Midtown Manhattan. Right now, hundreds of people, employees who work in this building, it's a skyscraper, are coming out with their hands up. Inside that building, a lot of multinational corporations. They include the NFL, Blackstone, JP Morgan. There is a heavy police presence there as well. We can confirm, according to WPIX, which is our sister station, that the shooter has shot an officer and at least 2 civilians. Their condition not known as of now. This video, it's the first, we first got this in the newsroom. You see first responders entering the building. Jason, let me go to you. I just talked to Jennifer about how difficult the logistics are to lock down something like this. Now we have some sort of image of the suspect. Where does the investigation go from here?
I want to double check and make sure that that person, the image of that person is in fact related. It seems to be in this case, and oftentimes in these types of cases, there's a lot of information flying around initially that turns out not to be accurate. This case seems like it is the right one, though. So you want to make sure that that is the right person, and then you'll be able to put that in some kind of facial recognition software that the Bureau has, the NYPD has. You'll start there, and you'll be able to get the public's help to circulate that to see if anybody recognizes this person or not. And that's where that starts. But the challenges of a vertical response, like it's different than being on the street and having to deal with an active shooter threat, because you have to go 30 or 40 floors in a skyscraper. You got to secure all those floors, those elevators, the stairwells, and rooftop access all at the same time. So that is a tremendous challenge, as Jennifer mentioned before. The floor plans are different there, and a lot of these buildings have different access panels and ways to get in. So it could be very, very cumbersome for tactical teams to try to gain access, particularly if the shooter is ahead of them and has higher ground.
Joe, like I mentioned, we think that is a picture of the suspect, according to our sister station, WPIX. I'm trying to see what he's holding. Now that we have some sort of image, what happens now?
Well, that looks like a weapon he's holding right there. So
a rifle.
What they'll do is, as Jason said, what they'll do is they'll zoom in on his face. They'll do the facial recognition. And they'll also look for, somebody has to notice this individual. They'll get that face out there as fast as they can once they identify. We don't know if he's familiar with this building, whether he's been to this building, whether he works there, but somebody will know him. And the fact that they see the direction he's coming from, they'll start checking the cameras all around there, working their way backwards, see if he left the vehicle in a parking lot or on the street someplace, if he was dropped off by somebody. All that is taking place right now while this investigation is still going on that floor where the shooting occurred. But the fact that that building is locked down right now, the cumbersome task right here is if this person is familiar with that building, he might be in any one of those offices or, rooms up there, and they have to systematically, eliminate each room to say, the suspect isn't there.
And no doubt there's no easy task going room to room, floor by floor. I believe we have Tracy Walder on, former FBI and CIA. Tracy, are you on the phone as well? Okay, we're going to go back to Jennifer. Jennifer, as we're seeing hundreds of employees walk out with their hands up in Midtown Manhattan, I imagine a lot of these people are going to be interviewed. How hard is it to get a profile of just what happened and the suspect in such a massive scene?
Yeah, it's going to be very difficult. But I tell you what, looking at that picture of that armed man there, I found that it appears he has something on the order of an M4 type rifle. It looked like it was slightly camouflaged. I found it interesting that it looked like he might possibly have a vest underneath. He looks a little thick right there. I also am looking for any ammunition, any magazines. What else does he have? If he only has this one magazine, that would really limit him. I'm wondering if he has anything stashed or stored where he was at, how well planned out this is.
Tracy, I know you're on the phone now. As we're taking a look at who we think the suspect is, Jennifer made some good points that, you know, he seemed a little thick. Who knows if he might be wearing a vest? Is there ammunition? But knowing the few details that we do have with this picture, how would law enforcement be responding, and what kind of profile are they creating from the suspect and these pictures?
Well, thank you so much for having me. You know, I think and we've talked about this before, I actually think they're probably working backwards because that is ultimately what will lead you to him. If you can find out, was he on foot? Was he on bicycle? Was he in a vehicle? If you could find out where this potentially started, either before he entered the city or before he came into contact with this building, I think that's going to be helpful. I also think they are probably asking individuals within the building if they know who this individual is. I feel that this is probably targeted. This is someone who knows that they knew exactly where they were going, why they were doing it, and probably targeting a group within this building. So I wouldn't be surprised if people inside may know who he is.
And I just want to remind our viewers what we're watching right now. This is a skyscraper. There is an active shooter situation. As far as these national corporations, really international corporations in the building, they include the NFL, Blackstone, JP Morgan. Joe, you and I were talking about the cameras, security cameras in the area. How quickly can investigators get their hands on these videos?
I can tell you they have their hands on a lot of the videos right now. And they're going to, like I said, they're going to work backwards. They're going to go follow his footsteps coming into the building and work backwards and see if he has a vehicle there. And you have to remember, it's pretty hot in New York today.
Yeah.
That man's wearing a jacket as well. So in answer to the other questions, he probably does have magazines stashed in that jacket someplace. So he came prepared. And I agree with your guest there that he definitely came here. He knew what he was doing. He came here with a purpose, and they'll put a rhyme or reason to this very soon.
Like I've said repeatedly, details are trickling in. We're getting more information live on air. Jason, as I talk to you, and I don't think we've spoken since we saw that image of the suspected shooter. Actually, you guys stand by. I'm going to go to Anthony De Lorenzo from WPIX, who is live on the scene.
Also, the police officer who we're told was off duty at the time. He was working a paid security detail inside of that building when he confronted that gunman inside the lobby, apparently. And that is when that off-duty officer was wounded in that gunfire. It does appear after the shooting happened in the lobby, the initial gunshots that broke out inside of the lobby, the suspect made his way inside that building and up 33 floors. And it's unclear whether there are any casualties or injuries on that floor other than the gunman. That is something that is still being investigated right now. You can imagine that the police heavy weapons teams have just made their way up to the 33rd floor and are now clearing the area of any possible potential other dangers. So they are trying to determine the casualty count, if any others on that floor as well. But again, Corey, at this hour, the suspect responsible for all of this chaos is down. He shot himself late tonight, and police tell us that there are 2 other casualties at the hospital right now in critical condition, along with that off-duty police officer. Back to you.
And, we don't know much about that off-duty police officer yet, but boy, what a hero, right? I mean, to see this guy with this long gun and to jump into action to try and stop this guy. And I would imagine, being on a paid security gig, he's not carrying that kind of, that kind of heavy weaponry to respond to that situation, but still jumping in and ultimately being shot and critically injured. I'm sorry. You can pick it up.
when they are off duty, they are typically in uniform, and they are carrying their service weapon from the NYPD. So yes, he had his handgun, but he didn't have a long gun. And as you saw from that photo, that is what the suspect was armed with at least. We don't know if there were any other weapons that he was carrying as well. So yes, extreme bravery and heroism on the part of that security detail who worked for the NYPD, who is now apparently fighting for his life.
All right, Anthony, obviously, some great new information you got us there. Certainly stay out there. We'll check back in with you in a bit. Want to get back to Sal Lafriere in a second here, or actually right now, because Sal, you're hearing what
we are watching reporter Anthony DiLorenzo from WPIX on the ground. Now we are taking a look at the suspect. Anthony just reported the suspect is down. We just learned in the last few minutes he shot himself. We've been telling you an off-duty officer was shot, as well as a civilian. According to Anthony's reporting, the off-duty officer was shot in the lobby by a suspect who walked in. The suspect then went to the 33rd floor. Right now, we're looking at emergency responders, first responders coming to the scene. This is a skyscraper in Midtown Manhattan. This is a massive building with massive corporations, including the NFL, JP Morgan, Blackstone. I want to go back to the panel now. Joe, I will start with you. Now that we have a few more details that the suspect is down, he's in the hospital. We don't have an exact number of casualties or injuries, but this little information that we've gotten so far, what does that tell you?
Well, it tells me that at least we know the shooter's down. I just pray for the victims right now. I just hope the officer is okay. The fact that this could have been an off-duty gig that he had separately, we don't know. But if it is a paid gig, they are in uniform, as they did state, and he probably had a service weapon, was vested, but we just don't know what his injuries are.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.